Hi, I'm Whack.
Hey, and I'm Pat. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Weekly Orbit, this week ending the 31st of January. It's been a terrible week. No way
Yeah,
to sugarcoat it, Whack.
no,
This has not been a good week for markets, for Rocket Pool. We've got a lot going on. And, we got a new part of this was a big announcement in China with this Deepseek AI, which came out. And then the markets reacted really negatively in the US, which then the tail of that came into crypto, and then Ethereum and Rocket Pool and everything else went to hell.
hmm
So it's been rough. We're going to talk about it in markets. We got some also some Rocket Pool news we'll go over as well. So how you been handling all this?
putting my head in the sand, pretty
Are you
much.
ready to are you ready to just quit, get out of the industry, pack it
Not,
up, or
not
what?
yet, not yet. I
Not
think I've
yet.
still got a little bit more gas in the tank for that, but it's been tough. Like there's no sugarcoating it, like you said, right? Like it's been one of the worst weeks in the Rocket Pool community that I can remember. Like just sentiment is absolutely in the trash, price
Yeah.
is in the trash. Like it's been tough. Like it's been really tough. Like yesterday I had a tough day. Today I'm back. Hopefully, like a bit more like positive, maybe whatever you can see the positives, and just trying to look at the bigger picture and like hope that things turn around soon to get people excited again.
I mean, that's what we hope. But let's get in the markets. Well, the big story was this DeepSeek, which is a
Mm.
Chinese AI. So the market has been assuming over the last year, I guess, that we'd have AI. They're going to be run by these really expensive and hard to find chips that are made by basically one company called NVIDIA. That is the thesis of going forward. This is how it's going to be. You're going to have to, if you want AI, it's going to be just a few big, huge companies with giant amounts of capital going to spend tens of billions of dollars on very expensive chips made by just one company. All of a sudden, DeepSeek comes on the stage, and they're like, "Hey, we've got an AI that's running on cheaper chips, and in some ways, it performs better." And the markets were like, "Whoa!" And it caused a sell-off. And I think with like Nvidia, it's the valuation on it's so high that any little tremor can cause it to
Spook.
it spooks everyone, because they're like,
Yeah.
everyone's sitting there with the sell button. They're like, man, this is really expensive. I've made some money. When do I hit sell? And basically, I think that's kind of what we had happen this week. And the markets reacted pretty negatively. So let's talk about Rocket Pool first, because that's what the show is about. We had a really rough week. Right now, it's $8.26. It's up 4% overnight, or the last 24 hours. But you can see the last week, we're down 12%. Last month, down 30%. On the year, it's down 73%. It's
If you
been
refresh
rough.
it, we're actually up a little bit.
A little bit more? Okay.
Yeah, it's like 850 right now.
There you go. Oh,
8,
even better.
847.
Seven.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's all good now.
Or not. Instead of an all-time low, we're at an all-time, well, kind of low. It's at
Yeah.
847.
Yeah.
Okay, so over last, it's up 7.6% in the last 24 hours. So
Yeah.
you're getting some buying there, which is good to see.
But the longer term
Overall,
numbers are still down bad,
yeah,
right?
they're
Like
horrible.
it's 7 days, 7%, 14 days, 18%, 30 days, 28%, not 30%, that was just 28%. So yeah, it's down bad.
Right.
Yeah.
If let's see how it's done against the broader market, and let's go to the 5 day. As you can see on the chart, Ethereum is down about 2% over the last 5 days. The rest of the market is down about 1%, and RPL is down about 5 or 6.
hmm
Okay, so it's struggled against everybody else.
Yeah.
And as we were talking, I think before the show we were just talking general markets. There's a lot of things going on here. We haven't seen the inflows of new money yet that when we were expecting in terms of so you got macro, where hey, we're not getting as many interest rate cuts as maybe expected. And so you still have all this money on the sidelines earning higher interest rates in savings accounts and other money markets. So you get not getting those big flows yet. And in Pool specifically, LSTs are just kind of not in favor at the moment. And I have this chart up just as a trend here. This is validatorq.com. And right now we're looking at a chart from active validators. And you can see, Whack, where we peaked, I think I think it was September,
Yeah, September, October time. Yeah.
November. Yeah, we're at about 1,082,000 active validators. We're currently at 1,053,000. So for those not watching, we've seemed to have peaked, and there's a trend that's slowly starting to tail off a little bit. And I think that's in this cycle, Whack, where you mentioned this actually, I don't know if it was a month or two ago, where you think that your thesis is that LSTs are more of like a bear market type of product. When the market starts heating up, people don't want to be locked in, or people are looking for shorter term gains, or like, hey, I want to be liquid. I don't want my ETH staked, and so I want to have it ready to go where I can maybe buy AI tokens or whatever the hot thing of the day is, so I can reap higher profits. And then when the bear market comes, people who've I've got that ETH are like, you know what, I'm going to sit tight. I'm just going to earn my 3, 4, 5% and stake it. And so that's kind of, are we starting to see that on a trend line? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's like a mixture of a bunch of different things. Like you said, the attention is just not with staking right now. It's with all these other different things, and that's where the attention is. It's just not with staking, and it's not something that people are talking about. It's still present. Like it's still Lido's still the biggest. Eigen there is still huge, but they're not growing. Like they've kind of stagnated. Even with like CSM for Lido, like I don't think they've had a new validator come online in over 6 weeks, because Lido's getting smaller instead of bigger, and CSM only comes online when Lido's getting bigger, because they're prioritizing those validators instead of like exiting validators. So that's kind of what it's looking like right now. The LST space is just not in attention. Now, something that could bring it to attention is like staking ETFs, and that would get people talking about ETH staking again, which would definitely bring attention on the whole space. Now, the question then becomes will people just be talking about staking ETFs, or will existing staking tokens catch a bid? That's something to definitely consider, because there's two ways of thinking about it. If you think that, hey, there's mind share coming onto staking, then staking tokens should go up. So that's a positive. However, if you think that the people might be focusing on the fact that so much more stake is going to come online, yields are going to go down, it might make it less attractive to stake. Like that then might take away mind share from the staking, like actually people buying tokens. So I don't know how it's going to play out. I think it's going to be a net positive, especially if we can spin up narratives of LSTs being like crucial to that somehow, like maybe not in the first instance, but maybe like 6 months, a year down the line, there might be an ETF that has LSTs or whatever, something along that kind of line. Like that could be quite bullish, but you need some kind of catalyst with that. Like I think mindshare alone should help, but I don't know how much it might or might not help, depending on how people kind of like perceive it. So there are some still question marks about how that's going to play out, but at the moment, like we like the thing is, like ETH is kind of like the black sheep of the crypto family right now, like where other things are kind of getting attention and catching bids and ETH isn't. There are things that are happening that I think will give ETH more attention, which means it will hopefully start to outperform. That's like macro financial stuff that could be from quantitative easing happening of some kind. Like the Fed yesterday in their FMOC meeting are still pursuing quantitative tightening. That means they're still decreasing their balance sheet. That means there's still not enough liquidity on the market for people to go out on the risk curve. So the first thing is we need a quantitative tightening environment. Now the next Fed meeting is in March, so that's another 2 months. Unless something breaks and they have an emergency meeting, then that's 2 months potentially of either people starting to get signs that it's going to happen and then starting to price it in, or just waiting to see what happens. That's not nice. Like that's not what we wanted to hear yesterday. We really wanted that regime change to happen from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. Now that means we just have to wait. So that's on the macro side. On the crypto specific side, there's growth of L2s. There's like ETH mindshare. As long as it grows, then it should catch a bid, which hopefully means RPL should catch a bid as well. So there's just too many factors, like in all honesty, and I think that people are just kind of riding the waves, and sentiment's just been really bad. I think a lot of people are just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes exhausting mentally if you're in this in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got an investment thesis, you have conviction, you stick with it, and sometimes you're better off not watching the charts, day to day. If you've got the conviction that you think this is going to be a long-term investment that's going to really pay off in the end. If you think that stable coins is becoming bigger part of the world economy, and most of the stable coins are issued and used on Ethereum L1 and L2s,
Yep.
then Ethereum should catch a bid, at some point,
Yeah.
because it's going to be a heavily used network for people paying
Yeah.
each other across borders in stablecoin. Just as an example, if you think that's a good investment thesis, invest accordingly. But of course, none of this is financial advice. But
Of course not.
let's take a look at Ethereum and how it did this week. Let's refresh.
Refresh the page.
Yeah, let's refresh this because
We're up a little bit.
yeah, right now we're 3,260. It's up 5.2% over the last 24 hours. It's down 0.3% on the week, so it's flat. Last 2 weeks have been flat. It's only, again, 0.5% down on 14 days and about 5% on 30. So yeah, it's just it's hanging out around that 3,200, 3,300 mark. If we'll take a look at ETFs flows, it's been a negative week on the whole. The big one was January 27th. We had outflows of about 136 million. We had a little outflow yesterday of about 5 million. So overall, since ETFs have launched, ETH has had ETF inflows positive of $2.6 billion. So not too bad. Overall, we're up. But we'd like to see that continue to grow. I think ETFs is a long-term thing where these things roll out slowly. You got to get to family offices that are, are financial planners, and they meet with their clients once a year to talk about investment strategy. And then they, it's like this slow moving marketing thing. So hopefully we'll see that increase over the 2025.
Yeah, one thing to say about the ETFs is like the ETH ETF is behaving kind of like what people thought the Bitcoin ETF would perform like, in that, the first year would be a slow rise, and then years 2, 3, and 4 would just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And hopefully that's what we'll see with those coming years. But like ETH as an ETF, if this was just a regular ETF, this would be one of the best performing ETFs of all time. Getting $2.6 billion within 7 or 8 months, whatever it is, since it launched, is monumental. This is gargantuan by ETF standards. And people would be like salivating like at the thought of this. Like they would have been like, this is absolutely incredible. It's only when you compare it to the Bitcoin ETFs is when like it just pales in comparison, like vastly like smaller than the Bitcoin one. And that I think is part of the reason why people are kind of like disappointed about the ETF flows. Like when you take it in isolation, that's the thing with like ETH as a whole right now. If you take ETH in isolation, you're just like, hey, ETH is awesome. Like, it's up 40% in a year. That's a really strong year. But when you compare it to Bitcoin, Solana, all these other things, then you're just like, oh, that's not so good. You know what I mean? And it's like that kind of comparison is like, the saying is comparison is the thief of joy. And it is. But like when it comes to money, it just heightens that so much, is that I could have made so much more money if I was in this other asset instead. And that I think is part of the key information here, is that, that's where this negativity is kind of stemming from. And I think the like crypto Twitter for ETH has just been, a wreck recently, with people like, infighting, verge of civil war, people like throwing, mud at each other. Like it's been really bad. And I feel like the ETH sentiment is really low. And then within that, the RPL sentiment is really low. So for us guys who are in ETH and Rocket Pool, we're getting like doubly hit. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, that's what makes it really tough. Like it makes it really, really tough right now. So yeah, no fun.
Yeah, there was those days, it was in late 2020 where people were dismissing ETH. Say, hey, just the barbell strategy. Buy some DeFi tokens and BTC and you're good. Yeah. And then a few months later, ETH was rocketing. So it shows how quickly narrative and sentiment can change in this industry. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month, but boy, things can move quickly up or down either way. So,
absolutely.
Hey, strap in. It's going to be a fun and bumpy and terrible ride all at once. Let's talk some Rocket Pool news. So you were talking about institutions getting into the staking game. And on the community call last week, there was some talk of Fidelity. And apparently Langers, during the call, he stated that they had talked to Fidelity a few months back. They were mostly interested in actually the node operator side of things, running their own. Because there's been a question, if there's ETFs, are they that stake, are they going to buy LSDs, or are they going to stake their own, as node operators? So they expressed interest in node operating. He said that they have kind of re-engaged with Fidelity and trying to pitch the rETH side of things as well. It sounds like it's just talk at this point, Whack. Nothing solid, but it's nice to hear that there's conversations happening, and we'll see what happens. Do you have any thoughts about Fidelity?
Yeah, so this would be like, one of those really positive things that, we're kind of hoping for, is some big names coming into Rocket Pool. Like, it adds a huge amount of legitimacy to Rocket Pool. It would get Rocket Pool back in the front of the news again, like all of this kind of stuff, like, really back into the mindshare, and that would be awesome. Like Fidelity, of course, are huge. They're massive, and they're the second biggest ETH ETF service, and everyone is now looking towards staking, right? Like they think that the ETH ETFs are going to really prosper and do well once the ETH ETFs, staking ETFs, get included. And that, like, we've already seen Hester Pearson and others kind of hinting that should be a quick process. Like, I think it's just an amendment they need to make to their documentation. That paragraph that was removed before
Right.
the ETH ETF was approved, that just needs to be put back in there, I think. And that should be it. And then it'll just be like rubber stamp approval. Now, with that happening, then these guys are trying to figure out like what's the best way that we can make money for our clients and for our investors. And Rocket Pool is one of those ways that they can make extra money, right? So if they're node operators, then you have to obviously like have node operation cost, but you're getting 1.3 times solo staking rewards. That is all gravy. Like if you can offer better yield than your competitor, then you should technically get more inflows. Like there aren't other services really like that can potentially absorb node operators of that size. Like we're talking about tens of thousands of validators potentially. They can't absorb it of that size, so that becomes an issue. But Rocket Pool technically can. It's permissionless. There's no restrictions on how big a node operator can be. So that kind of stuff is really really interesting. However, we're struggling to get node operators online because of the rETH demand, right? So
Right.
that is a bottleneck. So I feel like in the last few years, there've been so many moments where we've had, these conversations or these ideas towards building some kind of partnership with companies, but for one reason or another, either we were node operator constrained or rETH constrained, or some kind of, there was some kind of restriction, and because of that, we just couldn't do the what we needed to do or get to the place that we needed to be. And this sadly is, I think, one of those situations again where they want to be node operators, but they'd have to sit in queues for maybe weeks, months, who knows how long, an indefinite period of time before they can be matched with rETH to get staking. And that sadly is just, they might go and look elsewhere instead, or they might, start their own service in-house. And the problem is that if you don't get in there right in the beginning, if you don't make that headway right in the beginning, it's very rare that people will come back and look at you again, months down the line, because they'll already have their setup in place, they'll already have their infrastructure, their systems in place. So the friction becomes much higher to doing an action than it is right in the beginning. So that's my worry right now. We really need rETH demand, rETH to go back to peg, rETH minting to happen in the deposit pool, getting those validators online, which makes, these people think, hey, I can come and be a validator here. That's awesome. And if they come and start being validators, then that will bring attention to Rocket Pool, which means hopefully people will start minting rETH and all this kind of stuff. So the pieces just aren't quite sitting right. And, I feel like if we get really lucky, we can just have them all fall into place perfectly. But it's just, we just can't do that right now. There's so many pieces that could could potentially fall into place properly. It just hasn't happened, and I'm hoping that one day we wake up and BlackRock is saying we want to mint our ETH, and Fidelity is saying we want to be node operators. And, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, if we could just balance the different sides. I don't want Rocket Pool to be captured, obviously. Like, that's just, we don't want to become like, just here's an institution and they're just staking all on Rocket Pool. Like, that wouldn't be ideal, obviously. But
you know what I was thinking, just out loud. I mean, if you come in with size, you could, the problem here with Rocket Pool is it's either node operator constrained or rETH constrained. But if you come in with size, you could, okay, we have a rETH problem, or no, there's nothing in the deposit pool, so let's put 30,000 ETH in the deposit pool. That solves that problem. And then on the other end, I got 30,000 more ETH. I'll set up. Could you balance it yourself if you came in, if you're a Fidelity, and do both ends?
Well, the problem with that would be that you'd balance out, like, your staking rewards will just balance out, right? Because you are giving yourself the commission. So it wouldn't necessarily be the case that, they would make more money that way. What could happen, and what might be an interesting strategy, is if the person brings the deposit pool back to peg, and then they start validators, and then they're kind of like feeding their own validators, but because the deposit pool is at peg, other people will also be minting our ETH. Hopefully that would then keep their validators coming online, and then as they build their position of validators that are online, then they can start selling their rETH potentially, and boosting their rewards that way. As long as it's at peg, you can kind of play those games. But as like just putting ETH into the deposit pool and then also running validators, it becomes like a net neutral game. So there isn't that much for them to gain from that.
Yeah, I figured there's three scenarios. I mean, you could try, if you're Fidelity and you're looking at what's available, there's Rocket Pool, there's CSM, but CSM's constrained as well. They only 10% of their
no, right now it's 2%.
2%, but I think
eventually
they're
hoping that will be 10% or more. So you can't go in there with size.
Correct. And then the third is run a in-house, just run your own validators in-house.
Yeah,
right?
But then you're not getting those extra rewards, right? Like you're just getting flat vanilla staking rewards, which is of course the most secure and all that kind of stuff, and which is the reason why a lot of people do it. But if you look at that BTSC or whatever, the Nasdaq company, they started their validators on Ethereum with Rocket Pool, right? Because they want those extra rewards, so they were willing to sit in the queue, saying, "Hey, I'll sit in the queue, but I will get 1.3 times my staking rewards." That is awesome. Like that works out better in the long run. So the problem is how long do you sit in a queue, and then at what point does it become beneficial to do it yourself or mint rETH instead? But that's really interesting. The if someone does come in with huge size, like hundreds of thousands of ETH, they could keep the deposit pool at peg and then just get their validators through and then slowly sell their rETH if they needed to as that is happening. But that they'd have to do the cost benefit analysis of that as well and see if it's actually worth it for them to do that. So I don't know if the numbers if the maths, but it's definitely an interesting idea.
Yeah, the other thing is they'd have to think about redemptions. Say the market tanks and all of a sudden they get a day where they got huge amount of redemptions.
Yeah.
What does that do? How does that impact the protocol?
So
right?
Rocket Pool right now has no mechanisms in place for redeeming at peg. So what will happen is people, if the deposit pool is empty, there's no ETH in there, then people want to burn their rETH and get ETH back. They have to do it in the secondary market, which will cause a depeg. However, the community is working on having a redemption system built into the protocol, and I think that was a huge glaring miss that we really should have built going into Atlas, maybe even redeeming a peg. So what would happen is, for example, say Fidelity comes in with 100,000 ETH. They get the deposit pool back to peg, so that'll take 10, 20,000 ETH, whatever it is, and then they feed their validators as they are minting our ETH to get their validators into queue, and then a redemption system comes up with Rocket Pool. Then they could say, we've got 20,000 rETH. We would like to redeem this, please, and then that would Rocket Pool, whatever mechanism they decide on, whether they're, kicking out the nodes that are the worst performing, or they incentivize people to leave, or whatever it is, the mechanism hasn't fully been decided yet. But whatever mechanism we choose to get people, leaving, then they could kind of take their place. So they are that tool would help a lot. Like having a redemption system would help a lot. At the moment, we're struggling because we don't. Like just this week, we saw Nesso. I'm not sure, is that on our agenda to talk about Nesso?
No.
No.
What
Okay.
I saw,
So yeah.
they're jumping around. They're putting money
Yeah.
in protocols,
Yeah,
and then a couple
taking
weeks
money
later
out.
pull it
Yeah,
out. Like,
yeah.
I don't know
So
what they're doing.
they minted at 18,000 rETH, and then they've been selling it on the secondary market. But they also minted a whole lot of Etherfi's ETH, which is a
Right.
liquid restaking token. So they stake it and then they put it into Eigenlayer to get a little bit extra yield. So they put like $140 million worth of ETH into Etherfi. But then they also withdrew it from EtherFi as well. But the thing is, like, EtherFi has a redemption system in their protocol. So they were able to go to the protocol saying, hey, I've got all this EtherFi ETH. I want to redeem this. And so EtherFi would it'll take a week or 10 days or whatever it is as the validators exit the deposit, the beacon chain, and then you can have your ETH back. So then they were able to get that at peg. They didn't lose any money because there was a peg issue, So I think that would just make a much better user experience, and a better user experience means people are more willing to use your product. So even though it might be a hit with some validator TVL going down in the short term, hopefully in the long term it'll mean that people are more willing to mint our ETH. And we know that there's no shortage of node operators right now because it's ETH only. You much rather get 1.3 times with Rocket Pool than one time with solo staking. So as long as we've got that ETH coming in, that's the main thing into the deposit pool, and hopefully things can be fixed with that soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping that rETH, that fix that we were just talking, the redemption fix, we can come to as a consensus and get that done, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. The other story was Jasper had a meeting with the folks at World Liberty Financial, which is Trump's team that they're making big headlines with. And my takeaway from this was, they met, and Jasper didn't walk away feeling all that optimistic because they liked the fact that the security that comes with Rocket Pool. But then I think they want people to, hey, if we're going to partner up with you, you got to put up some money. Essentially, it sounds like a bribe in a way. And the amounts that it sounded like, and Jasper didn't get into details, I guess the World Liberty is going to provide a proposal to Rocket Pool, but it sounds like the amount that they're expecting is way above what Rocket Pool could afford. Essentially, is that kind of sum it up, Whack?
So yeah, there's Jasper was, I think, deliberately vague about a bunch of things that he was describing about what happened, and he's kind of let some things out, whereas he's holding back some other pieces of information. So going back, I think the positives that Jasper took away from this was, the main one is that they love rETH, right? They thought rETH was a really good product. They liked the security aspect of it, the fact that so much of it is backed by collateral, and if they mint rETH, then the slashing risk and punishment for rETH is much lower than any other pretty much staking provider out there. So they like that. So Jasper's kind of been hammering that, saying if you are a protocol that wants to mint tens of millions of dollars of an LST, you would rather have a slightly smaller APR but higher security guarantees, and that basically makes up for it. So that was one thing that Jasper said that they were really happy about. The main thing that Jasper went to that meeting was with the idea that they would mint rETH instead of minting STETH. So they have been buying a whole lot of ETH, like $250 million worth of ETH, I think they hold now, and $60 million of that or thereabouts, they swapped into STETH, which is of course Lido's STETH. So what happened with that is, Jasper was before that even happened, when they were buying all the ETH, Jasper, I had this idea of reaching out to them and saying, hey, instead of holding ETH, you should swap it to rETH. You'll get all these rewards. It'll be really good for you. What you're waiting for kind of situation. And before Jasper was able to meet with them, they had already started buying STETH. So that was a little bit of an issue with that, the not sure how things are going to go forward. Leaving the meeting, the thing that was negative was, they're not minting rETH right now. However, the positivity was, they like rETH, they like Rocket Pool, but it seems like they want to enter partnerships with different protocols. And Jasper didn't say this, but other people on Twitter have kind of mentioned this, is that they expect some kind of money as a partnership. I think what happens is they want you to buy the World Liberty Financial token on the ICO kind of thing that's happening right now. And then you buy X amount of that token. And I'm just going to spit out numbers out. Like, I have no idea what the numbers, but this is one of the tweets that we saw, was that they said that you go and buy $10 million worth of this token. So you go and buy the token. And then what they will do is, they'll get $10 million and you'll have $10 million worth of their token. And they will spend $5 million of what you bought to buy your protocol's token with that on the open market. So, for example, if Rocket Pool, the protocol, went to Liberty Financial and said, "Hey, we want to buy $10 million of, your token here, WLI, whatever it is,
WLFI.
we want to buy $10 million of it," then they will use the $10 million that we gave them to go buy $5 million worth of RPL on the open market. So we've actually seen them doing this quite a few times. I don't know what their arrangements are on the back, behind the scenes, about how they're balancing inflows and stuff. It's all speculation right now. We don't have the inside word, but they bought Justin Sun's Tron token, they bought Aave, they bought Ondo, they bought Link. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, like we know with these different groups. They stake Lidos, STETH, obviously. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes with these different teams and these different groups, but I can kind of see how they would want, some kind of mutual exchange of tokens. So can Rocket Pool do that? I don't know. However, there are people in the Rocket Pool community who could potentially do that on the community's behalf, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now. Why don't you tell us what we're seeing?
Thomas G. So Thomas is one of the biggest holders in Rocket Pool and node operators, and presumably has a lot of capital that could be potentially used in this in a partnership arrangement. So he was tagged in this thread, and he responded, I'd consider it. And so Jasper responded, "Let's chat." So I guess to be determined. We'll eventually get a proposal from the World Liberty folks, see what it says, and then go from there and see if it's something that we can partner with. If not, it is what it is, right? If it's you got to have two people willing to dance to make it work, and if it's just too expensive, then it is, right? I mean that's all we can just say. It's like they might just be determined on their business model, which is, as you said, give us 10 million or whatever the minimum. I don't know what the minimum is.
I don't know either. I'm just pulling numbers from the tweet that was mentioned the 10 million thing.
So we'll find out, I guess, soon enough. He did say, the one last comment on this is, Jasper said, "The things I heard on the Trump call made me very bullish on ETH, FYI." So they've got other plans that I guess they're going to be rolling out. I guess that was pretty exciting to hear. So to be determined, I guess, is the final word on this. We'll find out. Go over a couple last couple items quickly. Symbiotic, which is a eigenlayer type restaking protocol. They announced that they're having a restaking vault that's going to include our ETH, which is great. You can earn points. We're still doing that whack in 2025, earning points and trying to farm. And so if you got some rETH, check out Symbiotic. I just as a tangent, I was reading over Symbiotic, and compared to Eigenlayer, it seems a little simpler. Eigenlayer is really complicated. Have you ever get into the docs about it? Symbiotic seems a little more, at least for someone like myself, easier to understand. But they are a competitor to Eigenlayer for restaking. So, any comments on Symbiotic?
Yeah, so Symbiotic's been running for a while, and people have been airdrop farming it for, I think, nearly a year now. So it looks like, the airdrop's getting really close. So they have a vault with rETH. I think they've had a vault with rETH before as well, during the farming stage. But the vault with rETH now has a capacity for 7,500 rETH. Hopefully that gets filled up, and hopefully it gets filled up by people minting rETH and buying rETH in the secondary market and then going to put it in Symbiotic. There's points available, like it's just a standard kind of thing. I don't know what's going to come of it. Symbiotic actually spun out of a team that was co-founded by people from Lido, I think. So there's that connection, which is why the STETH vault or the wrapped STETH vault is much, much bigger in size compared to the other vaults they have available. But the rETH is actually the second biggest vault that they have. So that's pretty cool to see. I really like that. Like, that Rocket Pool is still getting that kind of position, even with, protocols that have come up through competitors. But yeah, it's just let's see what kind of traction it gets. Let's see how it grows. And maybe there'll be an airdrop for people who farm it.
Yeah, speaking of mindshare, farming has taken a hit. It's not as popular as it was, say, a year ago with, getting points and all that stuff. And so what is taking mindshare? Is it AI?
AI.
AI is just hogging everyone's brain these days?
Pretty much, yeah. Like it peaked at around 60 to 70%, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And since then, it has taken a bit of a hit. But there's like two AI sectors that are still there. There's the AI like agents and that kind of stuff. And then there's something called DeFi, which is DeFi with AI, basically DEFAI. So it's AI DeFi. So those two areas together are taking up like pretty much 50% of the mind share right now, I think. So that's where a lot of the attention is.
Gotcha. Okay, our last news item is the GMC is now collecting requests for token motion. Okay, so token motion is done by Sleety, and he does graphics. He does really great work. If you want to see some of it, if you go to the Rocket Pool webpage, rocketpool.net, all the graphics on there were done by Sleety. Really, really professional, really sharp, really cool. So with this grant, you can talk more about it, Wack, is essentially, hey, if you got a cool marketing idea, you want to have graphics integrated with, put it through, and Sleety and Token Motion will make it for you. Is that about sum it up?
Yep, exactly. That's pretty much right. So Sleety set up a company called Token Motion. Token Motion does graphic design subscriptions. So they applied for a grant with the GMC, basically to buy a subscription. The GMC kind of decided about it for a couple of months, kind of went back and forth with Sleety about how it would or wouldn't work for us. And then kind of went in a smaller subscription model that they're setting up specifically for us with a fewer number of hours a week. And what we talked about was that the community would use Sleety, like the part of the hours that he will work for us, to make infographics, make designs, make POAPs, make any kind of imagery, branding stuff, like get it out there, like go and do it, and then we can use it. So for example, if Jasper or myself are putting together a Twitter thread, then we can reach out to Sleety, like using this form with the GMC, and say, hey, like we need some artwork that looks like this, we need some artwork that looks like that, and then Sleety can go and design it, and then we can use it in our promotional material. If there's an infographic we want to use to show about how rETH can be used in DeFi, for example, you can kind of sketch it out, and then not sketch it out, like describe it basically, and then Sleety can go and do that. The great thing is Sleety is a long time Rocket Pool community member. He knows the protocol like inside out. Like he gets the community, he gets the vibe, he gets like all of that stuff. So the person doesn't need like being brought up to speed about what Rocket Pool is, or how we do things. Sleety's been doing that for years. He actually had a grant before with the GMC as well, where he was putting out monthly like tweet threads, kind of explaining different parts of Rocket Pool and designing them out with like his own images and stuff, and design work that he did. Those were a huge success. Like we really liked those. And now I think we're going to work in a deeper way. So I'm excited of like good things to come from this. Can you scroll down to see if there've been any like submissions yet? I think Dr. Doofus was going to submit a bunch of things about the star protocol, like there's Ramana. Okay, so rETH, and so he kind of put through some work. So I guess he can go and do this work. So that's cool. Pretty awesome.
You don't have to explain how important orange is to Sleety. He knows orange.
Well,
that's
likes
Rocket Pool,
orange,
right?
orange flourish, like more of an accent than the primary color. So it looks like Ramana's already taken them up by putting in the submission request. It's just like you go and you fill out the form. Anything to do with Rocket Pool, like the GMC will then approve it. So I think there might be better instructions in the post, so go and read that. It might be that you fill out the form and then run it past Schifrin, or maybe as you submit it, then someone on the GMC needs to say, we approve this kind of thing. So we need to keep an eye on that, so just understand the mechanism. But this is a service that's now available. So hopefully the community will be using this quite a lot, and I think it should be good.
Great. Okay. how about let's talk about wins. You have a win for this week? Do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
Yeah, it's been a tough week for wins, in all honesty. But one of my tokens in the trenches is performing really well that I bought, so that's my win for the week. It's actually been really exciting to like watch that go up in price. It's not been happening very much recently, so this is my second big win in the trenches. I've been in there for a month. Yeah, tomorrow it'll be a month basically that I've been in the trenches. My portfolio is 4x up from where I started, which is a very good month in the trenches. Like it's been stressful at times, but I think that's my win of the week.
Okay, good. My win is well, it's kind of a win. I'm not using Twitter anymore. I decided I'm walking away from Twitter, and now it sounds like a negative, but I'll tell you why it's a win. Twitter's tough because there's a lot of good information, but also a lot of just negative stuff that goes on. I haven't been a fan of Elon Musk for a long time, and it's like, okay, he's just kind of childish and stupid sometimes. But then what got me was, and I don't get politics into this, but like the whole Nazi salute to me was that was a disqualifier. If you don't know, he gave a Nazi salute, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
Twice. No, during the inauguration.
During the inauguration.
The inauguration party, yeah. Right after the inauguration.
A week or two ago? Yeah.
Yeah, 10 days ago.
And, some people are like, well, no, I don't know if he was really doing it. But then a few days after that, he's given a speech to a far-right political party in Germany. Yeah. Kind of like it's kind of a Nazi-like party. And it's like, no, this guy, he lands rockets on the middle of platforms, in the middle of the ocean. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he did. And he knows people will talk about it. So I'm done with Twitter. I don't want to be associated with anything like that, given the history of Nazis in Europe. And I don't think there's much to be said there. But what's cool, Whack, is that spending less time on there has allowed me to focus on other things in my life. And this is just in general, social media and the amount of time we spend on our phones. It's driving us away from being social with each other and from personal goals we have. So, I've been, one of my New Year's resolutions was I want to learn Spanish. So I've been, taking Spanish, listening to audio and practicing. But I've been able to fill my life a little more with that and learning Spanish and because I'm not spending as much time on, Twitter or X. So that's a good thing. And just disconnecting a little bit, and I can still get news. I can read Discord. I can spend time on other social media. Like I was scrolling through Farcaster this morning, just which I would occasionally use, but now I'm starting to look at it a little more. So, anyways, that's my win. No more Twitter. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Good job.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I know it's been a tough week. Thanks for staying with us. Hopefully good things are in the future going to come around. Like and subscribe. We will see you next week. Whack, take care. Have a good week.
Absolutely. See you, Pat. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.